Hi guys, Jenny with On Fire Fit, and today we are talking about food and focus and overcoming challenges with health. And so I hope that you will stick around with me. I try really hard to learn, grow, and teach in how to bridge the gap between knowing what we should do and actually doing it. So that is always my goal and my focus, and my hope is that you will start to take what you learn and apply it and make use of it. We're going to be talking about some of that today. This morning when I woke up, it was about 4 o'clock, and I do oftentimes get up that early, but I didn't need to today. And yet I felt like, I think God's got something for me. And usually if I just obey that voice, listen, and just go and take the time, it is so rewarding. And sure enough, that is exactly what happened. So my morning started off as I went down the hall. I immediately started to think about, things that I need to do for the day and whatnot, maybe some of the normal thoughts that you would have as well. And I immediately thought I want to have a physical representation of how I want this day to be. And so I shot my arms up in the air and I said, "Thank you, Lord, for another beautiful day." And I said it out loud at 4 a.m. down the hall. But it suddenly just lifted my spirit, and it makes you excited. It makes you look forward to things. I used an acronym in the past called AHALT. One of the pieces of that acronym is to give thanks. And when you give thanks, it completely changes your focus. And we can apply that in all areas of our life. Another part of that acronym is to make a physical change. So if you notice that you're slumping down or your eyes are cast down, if you can throw your shoulders back, lift your chin, and even say something out loud that's positive, that physical change already starts to cause your brain to kick into gear and say, I'm following after that, because our minds can't tell the difference between what is real and what's not real. We don't have the ability to always decipher that. We tend to follow what we are thinking, whether or not it's true. I've heard this example before, but this is a prime time to talk about it. If, let's say you thought somebody had said something bad about you behind your back, and you started to develop this anxiousness and resentment and anger toward them, and then you found out later that it wasn't even true, or it wasn't what they intended, or the whole thing got misconstrued, and then you felt bad because you thought this and let yourself go down that road. It wasn't even true, but our entire emotion and focus went in a different direction, even though it's not true. This goes for all areas of our life. So when we are trying to overcome challenges with food, or maybe we are allowing, too many glasses of wine or something like that to distract and cause us to go into the wrong direction, we have the ability to snap out of that and get back into focus. And what I heard this morning as I was going down the hall and gave thanks, immediately I heard in my head, whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, "This is the way. Walk in it." And I thought, I know that verse. And why did that come about right now? It was not something that I've read recently, but I thought, I'm going to go do a whole lot more reading on that verse. So I looked it up on my Bible app. Okay, that's from Isaiah 30, starting at verse 21. And when I went there, it opened up this whole thing. So I hope that you will bear with me, because I am going to apply this in an area that most of my people that I talk to, most of the people that come to me for help, struggle with. The area is gluttony. And you could fill in all different kinds of things into that blank if gluttony is not one of your problems. I think we minimize it and make it seem like it's not that big of a deal because so many people overeat, overdrink, and we just think that's kind of normal. In fact, we are abnormal if we say, no, I want to honor this body God has given me, so I really don't want to eat that. People act like that's weird. And yet I think it's weird that people would pour toxins into their body and destroy their bodies and then pour a whole bunch of medicine in to try to solve a problem that could have been solved by getting at the core issue. To me, that's weird. You're dealing with all kinds of side effects and other issues that come about because you chose not to do what God made for us to do, which is to actually listen to his voice, stop when we're full, eat the right types of food that give us energy and nourishment, that guide and lead us in the healthy direction. So you tell me which one's weird. But as I read through this, I thought this is so cool. So I'm going to kind of talk you through what my process was. Or not even process, what God just sort of revealed to me as I went through this morning. I did write down and journal a lot, and I'm just kind of impromptu going through my notes because I think sometimes it's just cool to hear how people go through their process of listening to God in the morning or whatever time of the day. As I read in this, I'm going to read a little bit more to you because I'm going to break it down. So we're in Isaiah 30, and there is a part here starting before the verse I mentioned in 19, and it says, "O people of Zion who live in Jerusalem, you will weep no more. How gracious he will be when you cry for help. As soon as he hears, he will answer you. Although the Lord gives you the bread of adversity and the water of affliction, your teachers will be hidden no more. With your own eyes you will see them. Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, 'This is the way, walk in it.' Then you will defile your idols overlaid with silver and your images covered with gold. You will throw them away like a menstrual cloth and say to them, 'Away with you.' He will also send you rain for the seed you sow in the ground, and the food that comes from the land will be rich and plentiful. In that day, your cattle will graze in broad meadows. The oxen and donkeys that work the soil will eat fodder and mash spread out with fork and shovel. In the day of great slaughter, when the towers fall, streams of water will flow on every high mountain and every lofty hill. The moon will shine like the sun, and the sunlight will be 7 times brighter, like the light of 7 full days, when the Lord binds up the bruises of his people and heals the wounds inflicted." I was just like, oh my goodness, I absolutely love this, because a lot of times we can see how historically these things were written, but yet there's so much message for us today. Where I began is, first of all, God is always gracious to us when we cry for help. So we don't need to fear asking for his help, even if it's the 101st time. So ask for it, know that he is gracious and patient, and he wants nothing more than to be connected to us. So he will answer. And sometimes he does give us the bread of adversity and the water of affliction, which I think is interesting because you think of bread and water as being sort of the necessities, the basics of life. And sometimes it is actually through the bread of adversity, these things that we have to take in and deal with, the water of affliction, that he is actually teaching us and opening our eyes to things. And so it says, your teachers will be hidden no more. With your own eyes you will see them. Whether you turn to the right or the left, you will hear a voice behind you saying, "This is the way, walk in it." We oftentimes don't listen to that voice, and we don't get still enough. We don't pay attention to it. we ask for help, or we ask for guidance, or we ask for God to do something or reveal something or show us the path. And all along, he's been in the back as a shepherd. So this is where the voice behind you, the idea is that your shepherd leads and is telling you where to go. And let's say for me, I was, and I do this regularly, but I was during a long period of time where I would ask God for direction with On Fire Fit. And one of the instructions that I was always getting was to set aside the time that I eat just to be still and listen and pray or read the Bible, but not to be busy doing any kind of work. And I'm sad to say that I had resisted that for a really long time, thinking, well, I can get more stuff done. And then before I knew it, my old habit would just fall back in. And before I know it, I'm on the phone answering an email or a text or looking at social media. And I'm not saying he says the same thing to everybody, but when you keep getting the same message over and over again, the voice behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it, even though it wasn't the answer that I thought that I was looking for with this, question about direction for On Fire Fit, it finally occurred to me, he might be trying to teach me something about my path for On Fire Fit by me obeying him. Wow, what a concept. So that's what I started to do. And guess what? It pays off in huge dividends. So if you hear a voice behind you, it's not going to be usually shouting at you. Sometimes it gets to be a shout, and then you're in a dire straits. Your health might be screaming at you now. But if you can start to pay attention to that voice and obey it, and not listen to the other voices of the people around you that say, you can cheat, it's okay, what's the big deal, everybody does it, or you're the own voice in your head that says, I don't have time to do this, I don't have the ability, I've failed before. If you can stop listening to all the other voices and listen to the voice behind you, then you will start to walk in the way that you need to actually go. The next part of this talks about getting rid of the idol and throwing it away like a menstrual cloth, which yuck, 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 away with you. And you say it, away with you. And I'm going to use the idol of food and alcohol or drinks, sodas, whatever you want to call. We're lumping that all in the category of gluttony. There are so many blessings from God. But as soon as we disconnect those from God and we find our contentment in those things rather than in God, they have become an idol. So it can be food, it could be money, it could be your job. There's a whole number of things that if your contentment comes from that item or that person or whatever the case is, then you have disconnected from God as your shepherd, the one that's supposed to be telling you where to go, and you are allowing that to control you, and you don't have contentment at that time. So we need at times to get to the point where we say, no more, and I am throwing this away like a menstrual cloth, and say it, physical. Here we go again, my AHALT acronym about physical change, and saying it. If you're in a moment where there's junk food, you can just say, away with you, and imagine throwing it away like a menstrual cloth. I think the physicalness of that makes a big difference. And I know it sounds dramatic, and everybody wants to live in moderation, which is important. But the problem is when you have kind of been overcome with an addiction to food or wine or whatever the case is, you don't know what normal feels like anymore. You don't even know what it feels like to be content with God. And when you allow just a little bit of the idols to stay there, anybody that's read through the Old Testament knows that there were a lot of kings that got rid of the idols, but they didn't remove the high places. That means that they didn't completely rid themselves and the nation of the object that was causing them to stumble. And because of that, they kept falling back into sin. So you need to just get it out of there, and don't make excuses, and don't let other people tell you that it doesn't matter if you just slip it up this once. Sometimes you just need to yank it out, throw it away, and later on, I mean, God's not telling us to give up food forever, and you may or may not be a person that needs to give up alcohol forever, but if it has led you to a place where you feel compelled by it, then you are in a place where it has become an idol, and he doesn't want that for us. So sometimes you just have to get it out. The next part of this is he will also send you rain for the seed you sow in the ground. We all know that when you sow seed, you don't see benefits or results immediately. You sow seed, and then you take care of it, and you try to make sure you yank out any of the weeds, and you try to make sure it gets water and sun and everything. And in that process, as you're waiting, you know that underneath there's work going on and things are happening. The Lord is sending rain for the seed that you're sowing in the ground. But we have to sow the seed, and then we have to maintain it. And so this is all about being disciplined and being willing to do the work day after day. And there's nothing that sounds exciting about it. Everybody wants a quick fix that will get rid of the cravings that they have. But sometimes you just have to focus on sowing the seed that you can't see yet and waiting for that harvest. And it says, and the food that comes from the land where you sowed that seed will be rich and plentiful. And it even goes on to talk about how the sunlight will be 7 times brighter than the light of 7 full days. It's like light shining and giving you vision and purpose and excitement and joy. And it's just amazing because you can see the hand of God. And then it even says, when the Lord binds up the bruises of his people. You may feel like you have a lot of bruises and you've been battered and you've been wounded a lot, but the Lord binds up the bruises of his people and he heals their wounds. So you can be sure that the Lord is there to do that for you. Allow him to do his work in you. Allow him to lead and listen to his voice. Don't resist him. And all of these things will bring more light. And light is equivalent to knowledge. So knowledge will increase. And knowing this, of course, you have to take action, because just knowledge is not enough. So you have to take the action steps that will lead you into that harvest. And that means that you are doing the work day after day and you are willing. Now I am holding this because I wanted to just remind myself of some of the physical things that I want to tell you about that you should be doing. And these are going to be some tangible steps that I would recommend if you are trying to get healthier. Don't neglect the mind, because that is going to be critical. What your mind focuses on is where you go. And we'll give you a little story that you will have heard maybe multiple times, but it's always good to be reminded. But physical things are going to matter, okay? So what I do first thing in the morning is I drink usually a hydro flask of, this is 22 ounces of water. It's usually room temperature because I try not to drink like super shocking cold water in the morning, although you can. And I drink that. I do still like to have a cup of coffee, but I try to also have a cup of hot water, warm water, and I always add some lemon and apple cider vinegar, and that helps to kind of neutralize and get you more alkaline, which alkaline bodies are much healthier. Anytime you're in an acidic type of state, your body is already in kind of inflammation mode. Anytime we're in inflammation mode, we have a much higher rate of disease, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, anything. So we want to try to get our bodies more alkaline. Lemon water is fantastic for that. So if you want to add apple cider vinegar too, that's good too. Drinking enough water and staying hydrated and not using sodas or fake sodas, fake diet things, all of that stuff, get it out of there. It is only making you more acidic. lots of greens. So I try to have in the morning for my breakfast, I have a shake that has a lot of greens in it. I will typically freeze them because then I don't have to worry about how fast they, are going to last. I don't have to wash them that morning. So I take my spinach and I divide it into a bunch of different baggies, and then I always grow sprouts. So I will cut up some sprouts and they're fresh right off of the little sprout stand, and I throw those in there. And I put some apple cider vinegar. I usually use like a coconut water or coconut milk because coconut is also very healing to your body. Just put in all the greens, some celery, some carrots, some cucumber. I actually have frozen all of those and they taste really good. It does not get weird. Yeah, if you defrosted the celery and tried to eat it, it would be weird. But in the shake, it's great. So, and then I usually use some kind of vegan protein powder. But those things will help your body get started in a healthy way. They help your mind get on track too. And those are really great ways to get your day started in a more healthy and flowing in the right direction. Because when you start your day that way, then you just kind of want to keep going in that direction. The other part that I'm going to recommend is the mind shift. So when I'm coming down the hall and I'm saying, thank you, Lord, for another awesome day. Do I know that it's awesome yet? No, of course not. It hasn't even really begun. But I'm already setting my mind to go after what God has in mind for me. I am already setting my mind. And I will start walking. I walk in the neighborhood and I will just say under my breath, and it's not really loud, but I will just talk. And I will say, no weapon formed against me will prosper today. I have the mind of Christ. Any thought that doesn't come into agreement with Christ, I am casting back to him to deal with. I have the strength of God. I have his wisdom living in me because I have the Holy Spirit and he is my guide. I am one with the Holy Spirit, Jesus and God, and they direct and guide me. Because I have the Spirit living in me, I make only good choices. I operate out of wisdom. God's abundance flows right in me and back out again so that I can bless other people. I allow him to transform my mind. I am willing and humbly ask for him to take over, change anything that needs to be changed, purify me, make me more like Jesus. Give me more peace and contentment. Let me go after it. Let me not resist it. Let no part inside of me resist what God has for me and is trying to do through me. And I'll just say this as I'm walking, and it is so amazing. Your mind is so focused on what God has that you cannot think of all the junk that anybody and everybody is always having to deal with. We are never going to get to a point where we don't have problems or we don't have things that are stressing us. Even this morning when I went and did my walk and all of that, we've got some pretty major things going on in the background that are not positive necessarily. God can turn them for good, of course, but right now we don't know what's going on. And yet, I know God is at work. I know that he has a plan. I know that he is working and guiding and leading and making things turn for good. Even things that were intended for evil are being turned to good. And the more that you walk in that focus, the more that you will see things differently, and it will bring health to your body. It even says that in the Bible. One of the things that I talked about in one of my other videos that I'm not sure if it'll post before or after this one, but my daughter went and took a driver's ed training class that was advanced level with stunt drivers as the teachers, and they were also past policemen and things. And one of the things that they taught the kids is that when you get into a skid, don't look at where the skid is taking you. Keep your eyes on the goal. Keep them on the target. Even though all of this chaos is going on over here, don't pay attention to it. Look at your focus, your hands, and then the car will start to steer back quickly to the area that you are focused on. The kids that did not do that and they allowed themselves to stay over here a few seconds too long did not succeed. And they had to practice a lot of times until they got it. For some reason, my daughter, even though she was a little terrified about this whole idea, had very strong focus on where her target was. And so even though there were a bunch of guys that looked like they really knew what they were doing, hot rod kind of guys, when it came to that test, they weren't doing so well. But my daughter, boom, she was right there. And the instructor said, that is a driver who has extreme focus. In your life, there's going to be chaos going on. Don't look over there. There's not going to be anything good that comes from that because your mind goes in the direction that you focus on. Look at your target, look at your goal, look at what God has placed in you, listen to his voice behind you telling which way to turn, and you will get back on track like that. And before you know it, you will be making progress. So I hope that this gives you some different insight into how you can make change in a healthy way for your body. Anything that we do, we are going to reach some kind of opposition. So when that happens, just remember that's part of that chaos. Refocus, bring your attention back to what God has in mind and listen. Get still and listen. Make those physical changes. Do the things that you know are real truth. Say them out loud. Ignore the lies. And before you know it, you will be driving in the right direction and you will be making a lot of progress. So I hope that that helps you for today. I would love to hear from you. But until the next time we meet, I am so glad you're with me. Go out and live on fire.